Mary. Next up, we have Jared Stout, who's the Director of Congressional and Regulatory Policy for MeeksBI and Israel PLC. In that capacity, he advises clients on a wide variety of interdisciplinary aerospace issues across the commercial, civil, and national security space sectors. He has extensive experience working with the federal government, having previously served as the Deputy Executive Secretary and Chief of Staff of the National Space Council. And before that, he worked with the FAA, as well as the Science, Space, and Technology Committee of the United States House of Representatives. So given this breadth and depth of experience across the federal government, I'm really excited to hearing Jared here today talk Strength through diversity, space needs everyone. Welcome, Jared.
So before we start off, I just want to say that I sort of feel like, I'm using Erica's joke, I sort of feel like we should be listening to Max talk, and maybe we should be moderating after hearing what he's already done so far. So good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I know that's annoying when people do it. I don't care. I'm up here and I get to do it. So the title of my talk this morning comes from my own personal experience and what it takes to put policy together. So I'll start by saying that growing up in the South as a gay atheist was not fun. And I grew up in an evangelical family, which was even more not fun. And when you grow up in that sort of setting and you have a perspective that's different than everybody else around you, it takes up a lot of your time and energy and emotional perspective to try and figure out what is my career path going to look like. I'm just trying to get through junior high, right? Like I'm just trying to make it through whatever the next day is. So it wasn't entirely clear to me like what my career was going to look like. I had no idea. And by the time, when you get into high school and you're taking AP classes and everybody's like, okay, you got to figure out what you're going to do for college. What's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And it's really hard. I liked what Deborah was saying earlier about like trying to make order through the chaos, because my high school years were nothing but chaos and college wasn't all that much better. And so I spent a lot of my time and energy, just trying to figure out, who I was, what makes sense of the world around me, that sort of thing. So once I got past that point, I decided to get really engaged in politics. And I wasn't expecting to be any good at it. I didn't have any background in it whatsoever. But I took an opportunity to be a campaign manager for a local campaign. And the guy ended up getting elected. And so I went to go work in Tallahassee in Florida and worked in the state legislature there. And that's when I actually first became interested in space. I was working for a member of the state legislature that had responsibility for economic development. Space Florida is a big organization in Florida that does a lot of work for economic development for the Space Coast. And that's when I first got interested in space, was when Space Florida was asking the state legislature for various things here and there. It wouldn't be for a few more years that I actually got back into space, but I remember thinking at that time that it would be a really cool opportunity to do something with Space Florida. Like maybe that would be something that I would like to do. But after spending time in the state legislature, I got bored and decided to go do my master's degree. And in doing my master's degree and looking for places to go, I found this really great program in Israel. Now, I don't know if any of y'all have ever had to tell your mother or your father that you were moving to the Middle East. But it's also not a fun experience. And when I moved to Tel Aviv, I had never actually been outside the country. I had to get a passport to move to Tel Aviv. It definitely was not the probably the most prudent thing to do at the time, but it was a really cool experience for me. So I ended up living in Israel, got my master's degree, came back to the States, And when I came back to the States, a friend of mine was running for Congress, and she asked me if I wanted to go work for her, and I did not. But it was a good experience again, and I thought, okay, well, I'll go ahead and do that too. Now, in both of these instances, I think the life lesson for me coming away from that was you need to be prepared to say yes to things that you're uncomfortable with. And I was certainly not comfortable in either of those decisions, but I said yes anyway because I thought, I'm never going to have another opportunity to do this. I might as well go ahead and take the chance. When I got to Congress, I was greeted by the cancellation of the Constellation program, the retirement of the Space Shuttle program, and no clear pathway for what was next. And I worked for the member of Congress that represented the Space Coast. So we lost 18,000 jobs in 6 months in our district, which was an enormous hit to the economy. And everybody was looking at my boss to try and figure out what the next step was going to be. And I got put in charge. Like, okay, go figure it out. I was 25. I had no idea what space policy was or how to do it. And we just had to slog through and figure it out. So I think Mary's point is a really important one about making sure that people who have interactions with you, that you walk away from those interactions feeling positive. Because people aren't, I like the Maya Angelou quote that people aren't always going to remember what you say to them, but they may remember they will always remember how you make them feel. And I think it costs us nothing to be kind. It doesn't. It costs us nothing to be kind in politics and policy and career and your life. And I think oftentimes we spend a lot of our time and energy trying to make our way down whatever the next thing is that we're going to do. But I think taking a moment to make sure that people can remember how you make them feel is an important part of your career development. So after working in Congress, I went to work for the House Science Committee. My boss lost her re-election, no surprise to anybody at the time. When she lost her election, for those of you that are unfamiliar, those of us that are staff members for those members of Congress, we're just out of a job. We don't go into a pool somewhere where people get to pick us or anything like that. You're just out of a job. So I had to hustle and figure out what I was going to do next. And I got a job with the House Science Committee, where luckily there was an opening for human spaceflight. So I was able to work for the House Science Committee. I went on to work for the FAA after that, and then finally ended my last term of service for the federal government for the National Space Council. My pathway to the National Space Council was weird and circuitous. I've never used my master's degree. I've never used my bachelor's degree. My bachelor's degree was in psychology, although I guess I am sort of using it. And so my pathway to get there was just very weird. But I think that what you'll find for policy professionals, especially in space policy, is that none of us really had an obvious way that we got here. It just sort of happened. And it happens by taking opportunities where they present themselves. It happens by being willing to say yes when opportunities present themselves. It happens by being prepared to fail. If you know that you're going into something and you have no idea how to do it or what's going to come next, you have to be willing to take a chance and know that it's entirely possible that you're going to fail. And I guarantee you, if you ask Erica or Mary or probably Maxwell, definitely me, we have all failed hard. And you just have to figure out how to pick up and keep going after that happens. And then finally, I think you got to find your thing. That's a really important aspect of any career development is just what's your thing? So for me, my thing is I know how to turn really complicated ridiculous policy things or technical things into a political context and then blow it out into the wider context, because nothing happens in a vacuum. Space policy doesn't happen in a vacuum. Everything that we do, whether it's our appropriations or the NASA authorization, or it's Artemis, or it's commercial crew, or it's a commercial cargo, none of those things happen in a vacuum. They all happen because there are other orders of effect that are going on in other places in our government or in the industry that force us into a position where we had to take a position, left or right. Are we going this way? Are we going that way? And you have to be willing to take chances on that. And if you're not, then probably time to go look at something else. Maybe this isn't for you. Or maybe you're looking for something different, and that's okay, right? Like not everybody has to do the same thing, obviously. So I really encourage you to find your thing. And that could be, maybe your thing is astrodynamics and using astrodynamics for Leo constellations. Maybe it's orbital debris. Maybe it's international relations and space diplomacy. There's a lot of different things that could be your thing. So I encourage you to find your thing. I guess the last thing that I'll say is that if you find yourself thinking that you are too different, too unique, too not the right fit for this, I highly encourage you to follow some of Deborah's advice and take a step back, take a breath, make some order in the chaos, and find your way back, because I think space is the type of thing that really does need everyone, and it needs all kinds of people. And the thing that makes the United States, the thing that makes the space world so unique and special, is that we do find strength in diversity, and we do find strength in entrepreneurship, and we do find strength in all of the people that come from all different walks of life to make all of this possible. So thanks very much for your time. I appreciate it.